You've probably heard the terms project manager, product manager, business analyst tossed around like they're interchangeable buzzwords. But let's be honest, most podcast episodes, most articles, most books explain these roles either explaining these roles they either put you to sleep or they leave you more confused than you were when you walked in. Either way, it's not good. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to break things down properly. We're going to try to avoid the jargon. We're going to try to avoid all the textbook talk. We're just going to use real human language to review what this really means and how this really lays out. So first up, let's talk about the project manager. Now, a lot of people frown upon a project manager because when they think of project manager, they think of waterfall, a traditional PMP, project management professional, which I'll have you know right now, that is still, in my opinion, the gold standard of project management certifications. And it's not because I'm a strict PMP guy or that I'm doing a whole lot with my PMI certification. It's just I understand how hard it is to get that certification. I understand how hard it is to maintain that certification. And I understand the work that people put in to get it. And I understand that there's certain bits and pieces of it that work really, really well. For example, another nickname I might give them is the chaos controller. They're the person who really does control the greater chaos of a project. So if you've ever watched someone juggle maybe 5 flaming swords or while walking on a tightrope, I'll never forget it. I was on a cruise and the one juggler I watched, this was insane. He juggled 6 peanut M&Ms and a cyanide pill. I think you know where this is going. And every time one of the peanut M&Ms hit, he had to eat one. And he went up to 8 and 10 and 12. And it was crazy to watch. But I don't recommend that, by the way. Absolutely dangerous. But here's what they actually do on a good day. They make sure the team's building the right thing at the right time. Now, one might argue that's more product owner specific, but hang in there. They keep deadlines from becoming jokes. They want to make sure we hit deadlines. They deal with surprises because, yes, there's always going to be some type of surprise, just happens. And they align everyone without losing their mind. So if you think of them as the how people, their job is to get stuff done on time, on budget, and without drama. That's what they're there for. Now, what I can tell you is I'm starting to see more organizations lean in on Agile project manager. And we'll talk about that here in a minute because I feel like, let's talk about it now. I feel like the Agile project manager could be the missing link in some organizations. And what I mean by that is some organizations are still trying to figure out how to balance change management, AI integration and implementation, and full-blown focus on more than just the delivery. They want to focus on the entire realm of agility, which includes initiation and ideation, discovery, delivery, release. It's the whole package. They want to focus on outcome-driven or behavioral-driven things as opposed to output-driven things. And the only way you can get your head around those things is if you have someone who's seated in a project management position. So an Agile project manager does 2 things. It eliminates the word master from Scrum Master, which people have been trying to do for years. And it puts you in a position where you have someone who can focus more on the change management piece that goes along with project management. So if you ask me, the project manager is someone who, and I'm even going to go here, the Agile project manager is someone who is not necessarily just a Scrum Master focused on delivery, but they're an Agile project manager. Now, they're not going to focus on building the right thing. That's the product owner. The product owner is going to worry about that, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But they are going to focus on, and they won't necessarily focus on the budget, right? But they will focus on change management, removing obstacles, keeping a team happy, and keeping everything in a process perspective and flow. They also have some hand in education to make sure that people are pairing, peer reviewing, doing the things they need to do so that the education can be spread across the organization. And oftentimes they spearhead some of the AI initiative to make sure everyone understands how to adequately and properly use AI to make sure that everybody's on the same page and doing what they can do. All right, let's go to the second one. The second one is the product manager. Now, a lot of people say, you mean product owner? I'm like, no, I mean product manager. This is another one of those shifts I'm seeing, right? So the product manager is the person who keeps asking why. Here it goes. Product owners oftentimes are given a backlog by people who have done research, and their job is to make sure that the backlog is executed to build a high quality product or service, and that they work together with the teams to focus on, give details to, help align the work in such a way that it's easily consumable by the team. For years, this made sense until product owners started taking on too much work. So now you have product owners who are taking on multiple sets of work, a lot of different things. And instead of honoring work in progress limits, what they found is that they were struggling with getting people to understand what a WIP limit is and how it should be handled. So now we turn to, okay, we have these product owners that are really struggling because they're only focused on delivery. They weren't involved in the initiate and discover phase, and they can't answer all the questions. So now development teams are starting to go straight to stakeholders, and you wind up with this mess of meetings that it just turns into a nightmare. It turns into something very, very ugly. So what I'm saying, or what I'm advocating for, is that product ownership is starting to shift more towards a mindset of product management, which is inclusive of initiate and discover, which talks about generating good ideas and figuring out what's going on, identifying users' real pain points and figuring out where they are, working with designers to develop and shape ideas and user interface experts, saying no a lot and having good reasons for saying it. They're like building a bridge between what makes sense to the customer and what works for the business. So they're straddling this bridge, but they're making sure that they're helping discover the work and then making sure the work is aligned so it's easily consumable. So they kind of own the why behind a product, if you want to think about it that way. Why behind a product, why behind why we need it. And then finally, the business analyst. Now, if a project manager is running the show, an agile project manager, and if an agile project manager is running the show and an agile product manager is defining the vision, the business analysts are the ones who work hand in hand with the product manager to make sure that the script actually makes sense. They are going out and doing the interviews. They are conducting studies, doing observation. Oftentimes they'll physically write the backlog items or get them entered into Jira. They will help us understand the human side of what we're trying to build. So they really are honed in with their thumb on the pulse of outcome. They know all the wants, needs, whims, and desires of whoever the end consumer system is, and they make sure whether it's internal or external, we have our head around the work that we're actually trying to do. So this is just a really, really powerful role. Their superpowers are always asking the right questions, knowing how to map workflows, spotting gaps that no one else might notice, and explaining tech to business people and business to the tech folks. So they're kind of translating headphones, if you will, to make sure everybody's got understanding, clarity, and they don't like messy conversations. They want to make sure everything's nip-tuck, right? They want to make sure everything's good to go. What most people miss is that these roles have nothing to do with the titles. I'm going to say that again. These roles have nothing to do with fancy titles. Doesn't matter. These are about leading without being a boss. They're about influencing without having authority. They're about fixing problems when everything feels fuzzy. In the real world, a BA often ends up doing some of the product manager's work. There, I said it. A project manager might have to double up and help a BA with something that's going on. A product manager probably handles timelines from time to time, trying to govern and making sure things flow right to make sure the delivery is on time and on schedule. Especially if you're on a startup or a really lean team. One of the things that I warn you of, though, is all of this only works if you understand how to properly handle WIP limits, WIP, work in progress limits. If you don't know that, you're going to struggle. So if you're in a marketplace right now trying to decide, if you're brand new out of college, congratulations, and you're trying to decide, or maybe you're in college, or maybe you're transitioning from your job to a different role, and you're trying to decide what you should go for, if you really like the organization piece, the face-to-face piece, the communication piece, and you appreciate and know how to solve problems, then Agile Project Manager is right up your alley, especially if you know some AI. If you feel like you understand how products work and how they solve problems, and you have a capability of shaping ethereal ideas into something that's actual, working product, then Product Manager is probably for you. If you enjoy digging into the roots of what's behind the scenes and being scientific and simplifying things and making sense to complex stuff, Business Analyst is your jam. You're there. And that's what you need to do. But regardless of which one you choose, there are some things that blend. You need to communicate clearly. You need to think critically. You need to make sure you're asking the right questions and better questions, open-ended questions, and you need to focus on solving the correct problems. I think the big piece here is no matter which of these roles you are, you need to focus on help me understand. How can I better understand? Help me understand why we're doing things the way we are now. Help me understand what direction we're trying to take things. Help me understand how we got to the point where we are. Help me understand what I can do to make your life easier. These are all tickets and tricks that are going to help the team be successful, help build morale, and help everyone get on the same page. That's going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care. Bye now.